from the national union perspective, what are the major benefits that this system will bring through?
Yeah, how's it, guys? It's been a while since we've seen one another. Thanks for being here. I think first of all, I have to say thank you to my players, SARugbymag, the players themselves, the franchise CEOs and everybody. I think the system we've had for a while now, it's been one that's been in place, and obviously it's been a while since we've been successful. Been a decade since we've won Tri-Nations or Rugby Championship, so I think it's been a while since we've been successful, so we've done a lot of homework and a lot of thinking behind the scenes to come up with a successful model. In the past, we've contracted only a few senior players and tried to keep them in South Africa, normally between 13 and 20 players, and our return on our investment the last few years has just shown us, one or two injuries to a few players, you get 3 or 4 injured players and your budget's gone and you've got only a few players standing, and eventually your result go. So with a lot of work, we've decided to spread the budget, and with the franchise decided to contract more players. It's definitely going to be in the region much more than 50. I was hoping to get to 60, 70, but currently it looks like we might even get to 80. It's going to be an evolving process, and I think the more you guys ask me questions, because I think I'll try and explain it now, but it's going to take a while for me to explain it. So I think you guys must shoot with questions, and I think then the answers will come, and you guys will understand it better.
I'll ask Bharat now to speak on behalf of the unions and the franchises about what encouraged them to take this approach.
Yeah, gentlemen, during 2017 at a number of franchise meetings, the CEOs of the franchises discussed the benefits of the current contract model and the benefits of the then centralized contracting system. We then prepared a document amongst the CEOs with the help of my players, and out of that the concept evolved. So after that, it's been approved by the franchises. Then the non-franchises, we took it to SARugbymag. SARugbymag, for you that don't know what it stands for, it's a South African Rugby Employers Organization, where all 14 provinces got a seat on. It's the one organization that's in SARugbymag that's only management full-time officials that's involved. And basically we capped budgets and number of players. And out of the model, we've got now 3 categories of players in South Africa: professional players, semi-professional players, and development players. Development players is players under the age of 21.
And saving the best till last, Eugene, it was a major change for the players, so obviously they're a critical component in this. So from your perspective, why is this important?
Thanks, Andy. I think Baron said it now. We started with the process about 2 years ago. I think as an industry we realized we had too many players. That's obviously an issue on 2 fronts. The one is you're spending too much money, and on the other hand you don't do enough for player development, and not all the players are playing. So we started having discussions together with SARugbymag and SARu about a different contracting model. Obviously Baron was influential. I think he's probably the most experienced administrator when it comes to player contracting. Ras has got national experience in 2 countries, so he did bring a lot of that input back for us. And we also looked at what New Zealand, Australia and those guys are doing in terms of contracting, and try to get to a model that works for the South African market. So from a player perspective, we're positive about it. On a national level, we're positive because it makes provision for succession planning, which is something we did not have in the past. More players will now be involved in the national plan, which is also positive, and there's a real incentive still to make it to the test team. So that's on a national level. On a provincial level, we're also very excited about it because it does a lot for job security for the players. We believe there's much more job security in the system. There's a clear career path for the players, which is something that was not necessarily there in the past. And also financially, on average the guys are a little bit better off. So I think all in all we understand it's not necessarily the perfect model and the be-all, but it's a very good solid first step, and there will be adjustments in our view in future, but it's a good first step. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, over to you.
Rasi, a lot of people would have preferred central contacting, where SA Rugby has more control, particularly over your top players, the Springboks, sort of what New Zealand has. There seems to be more of the franchise and the provinces and the players getting the better deal compared to SA Rugby. Would you see it that way, and is it sort of almost to the detriment of the Springboks because of the financial and other issues that you have had to go this way?
No, it's a good question, and I think that's one of the things, that's why we took so long before we had this press conference, because we really made sure that we ticked all those boxes. We had a lot of workshops and a lot of franchise meetings and meetings with the players and my players and everybody to make sure that not the case. Actually, with every single player who's a player of national interest, we're going to have a contract with the franchise on each individual player, having our own, our own parameters in place to make sure, say a player X, for example, there has to be a high performance program in place with that specific player. So no, that's not going to be the case.
So will there be an avoidance of 100 Pollard flying over to New Zealand for one game?
Well, that was actually part of the plan. Andre needed some game time, otherwise you would have, if the Bulls went, for example, that's a great example. If the Bulls, for example, fell out of the competition, say next week, Andre would have gone into the rugby championship, not playing rugby for 5 or 6 weeks. So that was actually working with the Bulls, planning that. So there's a lot of things like that which we talked about, and that's actually part of the whole players of national interest.
Eugene, could you just expand on the provincial players? You said they got a clearer career path and job security. Can you just extrapolate that out for us?
Yeah, I think in the past, what the model is trying to do, Craig, is to have we'll have players until the age of under 21, and those players will be unlimited. So the provinces will be allowed to contract an unlimited amount of players. But thereafter, it's restricted in terms of the amount of spots that's available for contracting. So like Baron said, there will only be 45 spots available on a franchise level. So what we did in the past, we tend to keep players in the system until a very late age, 30, 32, just because we did not have limits on the amount of players that we could contract. Whereas now we believe we would be able to tell a player at the age of 21, most probably if you don't get a professional contract, that this is not the stage for you to go into professional rugby. If you want to get in, maybe via club system is a better system for you. But also the guys that we do take in, we will be serious about in terms of having a lot of resources around them, and also making sure economically we look after them a little bit better.
Eugene, an interesting thing that we see increasingly is that provinces contract in partnership with universities for varsity cup. Does this cap include the money that they contract with the university, or does the university, in other words, the university might almost be a way around this cap, if you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it's a good question. The total remuneration that's contributed towards the player will form part of the 10 million cap for junior players. So yes, that should be included.
But perhaps just to link on that, franchise 45 players, professional players that can play in Super Rugby or Pro 14 or Currie Cup Premier League. Then in the under 21 competition, unlimited development players. We changed the name because the players are now doing actually a apprenticeship, to qualify then as a professional player when they reach the age of 21. If you need some replacements out of the 45 players, you can use development players from your own as a replacement player, or a player from any club in South Africa subject to the rules of SA Rugby. And so that's now linked, it's capped. You've got 45 players. Emerging franchise, that's Griquas and the Pumas, 40 players, professional players. They haven't got the under 20 development players. They play in the under 20 amateur league. And then non-franchises can contract up to 23 professional players with 17 semi-professional players, but they don't have to contract 23. Some of them will contract a lot less, and then they can use free agents and ad hoc players to fill up their squad, but also a maximum with R1 million that they can spend on under 20 amateur players for their junior development players.
So are we moving more towards the 6 franchise system in this country, and the smaller unions, for lack of a better phrase, are becoming semi-professional?
I won't say we are moving towards that, but if you look at the allocation of the current funds, 6 million rand for non-franchises, 15 million rand for emerging franchises that's currently not playing in Pro 14 or possible Pro 16, and 60 million for franchises. There's a huge differentiation between that,
So it's obvious.
Just Rassie, just dealing with the Springboks, there's speculation or truth, whatever. Let's say someone like Evan Etzebeth signing for Toulon. Obviously, if it's £1 million or euros, are you a lot of sentiment? Oh, we've lost another player, with the public. Are you actually happy with that? You've obviously spoken to the players, and you've obviously spoken to a lot of the Springboks. And I'm just thinking of people like Bismarck, Duplessis, Frans Steyn. In the past, people are gone and we don't see them again. Are you happy with that? Because obviously it comes with the clauses, they're available for the Springboks at this time, and you've obviously spoken to Springboks, and it doesn't drain SARu's resources. So are you happy from a Springbok point of view that players will go overseas for big money, but they'll still be part of the Springboks?
No, look, it's sad to lose players and not have them in South Africa, and I mean, it's a sad thing. Unfortunately, we can't afford them, that's the reality. I think with the letter that we sent out last year or this year, specifically to the overseas club, telling them that we are going to enforce the Regulation 9, which means we can pick those players. I think the only positive about that is that the youngsters will come through. I think that's the only positive, and that those players are still available for us. I think the most important thing, what happened in the past, is when we didn't pick players from overseas, say a guy like Evan Etzebeth moved on, and say the next player, for example, I'm not saying he's the next player, but let's say that Jady Schikkerling was the next player, or Salman Murat, or whoever. When we didn't select a player from overseas, the Evan Etzebeth, then the Salman Murat or Jady Schikkerling or whoever is the next player immediately got that salary, because he was the next best player, and we didn't select a player from overseas anymore. So the player's salary immediately got inflated because he was the next best player, he was the next number 1 player, because the other player wasn't available anymore. So we inflated our own market, if you understand what I was saying. So for the first reason, that player is still available. You get 2 types of player who goes overseas. The one is at that stage of his career where he wants to go overseas. Some of them go overseas and have a holiday. Some of them go overseas and still fit, wants to play for the Springboks, stay in shape. Those guys we want available, because we want the best possible Springbok team. And on the other hand, it keeps the guys here on this side honest, fit, and not just relaxed, automatically earning a big salary and moving our salary cap off. So losing those players is sad, but if we try to keep those players, we worked out, if we keep 4 of those players, our budget are finished for the same salary that they're getting over there. So unfortunately, paying 70, 80 players and having control, as you ask us now, with the franchises of their conditioning, their nutrition, their high performance program, their game minutes, all of those things, the benefits are just so much more than unfortunately losing 4, 5 or 6 top players a year.
How do the elite rights work of the players? That's it.
In terms of what, Stephen?
The players also used to get image rights that were collectively negotiated, if I'm not mistaken. But,
Can you answer that?
and they would get money if they were X amount of pounds on Supersport or whatever. So what happens now with image rights?
That's separate, Stephen, and that's still in place, yeah.
Okay, so that will be negotiated separately
yeah.
in the next one.
But perhaps just something to link on what Rassie said. What's the conflict areas in professional sport, specifically South African rugby industry? It's 2 things: the distribution of revenue, broadcasting money, and the utilization of human resources. It's all about the right to use players on different levels, the top players. I think it's important to note that for the first time in the history, the national coach, the franchise coaches, SA Rugby and the franchises and my players agreed and proactively for 2 years worked on a model that, as Eugene said, it's not the dream, but it's a first step going forward. You know, at least we've got an agreement and between the franchises and the SA Rugby, the director of rugby, how we utilize our players so that everyone accepts that they've got a right to use the players for some periods.
Sorry, I haven't managed to absorb it all, but does this mean the sort of top end players in South Africa will be earning less? And if so, is that, do you foresee an outflow of players in the short term as a corrective measure if that is the case? Eugene?
Well, I think we will lose some players at the end of this year. The history established it, you know. Every 4 years there's a cycle of players that we're going to lose.
But I mean specifically to this, are the top players going to be earning less than they were? Is the first question.
Yeah.
And the second question, if that is the case, do you expect a greater number of players to leave as a knee-jerk reaction to potentially lower earnings?
Yeah.
I'll go. So in terms of the total budget that you contribute towards the national team, that remains unchanged.
Same.
So the players will earn the same. How it's allocated to the different players might be different to what it was in the past, but that has always been the prerogative of the employer and SARU to do that. When you refer to top players, I mean, I think about 72% of the budget was most probably contributed to the past to 36% of the team that was playing. The other 64% is also top players because they play for the national team. So actually what you want to do is you want to distribute your funding equally or more equally towards for all the top players that's currently in the team. And we think that will definitely be achieved. But the total budget that was spent in the past, that will remain unchanged.
It's Rusty with the Springboks. Again, have you been obviously having to deal a lot behind the scenes? I mean, different players, different Springboks, different stages of their career, like a Elizabeth, but a Stephen Kitsov coming back, or maybe a Peter Steftoy.
Yes.
And obviously you say it's sad, but you can't have all this. If they all say they love you and they want to stay here, you'd be bankrupted.
Yeah, I think that's the reality, and you know, that's why I say you get the 2 or 3 types of players who want to go to overseas. You get those who really goes there and who's toning down, family life, enjoys it, wants something else. He's probably not going to play for the Springboks anymore. You get the other one, he's at that stage of his career where it's really a financial decision, but he's still at the prime of his rugby career. He's still got the burning desire, who wants to play for the Springboks. That's why I went last year overseas and went to see all the Springboks that I think who probably can still play for South Africa at the World Cup. But you want to know who's got it still, you know, who wants to still play for it. And I think that's a difference. You know, you can see it in the conditioning, the way they play. Some of them go overseas and just relax, and I think that will be the difference. And obviously, if there's somebody in South Africa who's better, you will always pick that guy because you got access to him. You can fly to Joburg and see how he trained. You know, you can chat to Swayze or to the coach, and you can look at the training session. You got access to the guy. Guys overseas, you're only getting in with Regulation 9. So no, I think if you go and compare us with New Zealand, they lose just as many players. They also lose first choice players. I just had a look. If you go and look, I can maybe quickly share this with you. You know, the team that won the European Cup, Saracens, there was only 2 South African qualified players that we could have picked. It was only Skalkberger and Vincent Koch. The team that's probably the leading French team currently, there's only 2 players we can pick currently there. There's Cheslin Colby and Reinhard Elstedt. And then the team who won the Pro 14, there's not one South African player we can pick, who's Leinster. So there's 4 players we could have picked who's actually winning championships on the other side. So one must also be, you know, we're not currently losing players who's winning championships on that side, you know. So we must also say, what do we have currently here, and what do we have coming through, you know, and we have to compare that. The guys who's coming through, are we going to nurture them? Cut your losses and say, you know, we can't play 9-10 million rand for one player, he gets one knee injury, and he's out for the season, and we could have paid 10 youngsters, breeding them, and try and get us back into the map, being on 1 and 2 in the world.
Rassie, there were talks last year that you'd like to see the players pool more spread out over South Africa.
Yes.
Are you hoping that with this new system that this actually happens, that you don't see number 1, 2 and 3 in the country playing at the Stormers, for argument's sake, about the Bulls?
It's a great question. I think, listen, we're going to have some initial teething or problems and growing pains, if I can call it that way. We've got it's going to take a while till it actually kicks in. We've got an agreement between the franchises or between the CEOs. Every province or franchise has got a person in charge who's in charge of their succession planning. We're going to share it 3 times a year nationally. I'm going to share our succession planning in terms of ranking, who we see coming through, and the franchise is going to share their succession planning in terms of how they see in the next 3 years their succession planning coming through, and in terms of players of national interest, where we're going to contribute to the players we're talking about. It wouldn't make sense for us if there's 3 tight heads in one province, if we won't contribute for tight head number 3, for example, if he's going to sit there and not get game time there. So hopefully with the players of national interest where we contribute, we would know, a player would know that he won't get a contribution from SA Rugby, for example, if he's going to sit there having a good time, getting a good salary. SARu is contributing, he's getting a salary, and he's just sitting nicely on, being a professional player. So hopefully with the succession planning, all of us planning this player's future, his development pathway, what he's going to work on, and spreading. Hopefully we're not going to tell the player, listen, you have to move, but he's going to struggle just sitting there and not developing. So hopefully, I really think we'll only reap the benefit from this maybe middle of next year, I think. But the succession plan is already, most of the franchises has shared it with me, with us as SARu, and we've been really trying to get it spot on, hopefully by the middle of next year.
Does this budget extend the other key area, coaching, in terms of succession planning for coaches and keeping our good young coaches in the system? Because it seems that's also an area where we're falling down. A lot of intellectual capital is leaving the country.
Yeah, I must say, when I said say for example, we've got a player of national interest with the Bulls, and the player is number 9, we would say the minimum requirements for you to have this player there, the Bulls would have requirements from SARu, for example, give us an analysis system, give us a dietitian at SARu who can oversee the process. Then we will have some requirements. We have an individual contract with them in place. You must have, for example, a kicking coach. You must have per 15 players, you must have a physiotherapist, you must have X, Y, and Z. So there's a specific contract in place per player, per position, for example. So by this, both ways, we're trying to create a system where we are learning from them if they've got better expertise, and hopefully they're learning from us if we've got better expertise. And by what you're saying there, hopefully we're creating a pool of coaches where eventually we can start ranking our coaches and make sure if we've got the best kicking coach, the best defense coach, best attacking coach, that we're not losing the Johan Ackermans and those kind of coaches to overseas that. That's why I'm saying I think it's a matter of time that we will start reaping the benefits of the succession planning, both coaches, players, physios, all support staff.
Just in terms of overseas-based players, is there any cap limit in place, or can you still pick whoever you want to now and going forward?
No, I think already last year, we decided that that 30 test cap rule is out the window, just for this reason, because we've now decided that because we're going to lose probably, as I think the gentleman asked, we're going to lose a few players. That's not the case anymore.
Gee, what's been the reaction from the players on this new plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we started 2 years ago this process, and the players, I think, realize that they're a stakeholder in the industry. So there are 2 things that's important for them. The one is to keep the industry competitive, and the other one is also to keep it sustainable, because if it's sustainable, they want their kids to come into the same platform that they sort of enjoy, to have the opportunity at least to do that. And I think they realize that if we keep it competitive and sustainable, the other things like job security, career pathway, better financial situation, will come into play automatically. So we tested it at length with the players. We went around the country. It was discussed at their player meetings, and this is something that actually came much more from players than what it came from management, and yeah, they're very positive about it.
I know this seems like quite a stupid question, but the under 21, the development players, I presume an exciting 18-year-old can be contracted on a franchise contract.
Yeah.
So it's not an age limit cap.
No, that's that.
Yeah, the Frans Steins of the world.
Yeah, someone like that. Polo, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last couple of questions in English, and then we'll take a couple in Afrikaans.
Just in terms of the 45 players, the professional players, will they have certain levels to their contracts, or will that be the prerogative of the franchise to decide?
There's only a cap on the total budget, you know.
So there's no tiers.
No.
Just to make sure you understand, so in the past there was just to make sure everybody understand. In the past there was national contracts, a few national contracts, and then the franchises had as many contracts as they wanted. So there's no national contracts anymore. The franchise has all the contracts, and we've got players of national interest which we contribute to. So the franchise, and of those they can only have 45 in total. But they can, if they want to give all the money to one player, there's no cap on that specific amount. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, correct.
Last one, and then Afrikaans.
Obviously, just in terms of transformation, has anything changed? How does this fit into the plan?
In terms of this contracting, no. Well, the targets are still the same. So the contracting model hasn't changed anything in terms of transformation.
Thank you. Afrikaans.
As ek net opsomming van elke persoon oor hierdie nuwe mandaat. Nie net op die spelers Christens en
Ja, ek dink ek gaan myself seker myself bietjie herhaal, maar ek dink vir ons daar's twee vlakke, op 'n nasionale vlak en 'n provinsiale vlak. Op 'n nasionale vlak is dit goed, want ons het succession planning in plek wat baie goed is. So ons is obviously opgewonde daaroor. Dit is iets wat nie in die verlede daar was nie, of sover ek weet nie in die verlede daar was nie. Baie meer spelers gaan ook nou deel wees van die nasionale program. In die verlede was daai groepie redelik klein geweest, so ons dink dit is baie positief. Maar steeds is dit reg gekry dat dit vir jou baie voordelig is om die nasionale span te maak. Dit is eintlik nou, as jy in die toetsspan is, beter as wat dit was in terme van wedstrydfooie vergelyking met die verlede. So ons is op 'n nasionale vlak, maak dit ons baie gemaklik. Op 'n provinsiale vlak, soos ek gesê, die werksekuriteit van die spelers is beter as wat dit was in die verlede. So ek kan maar dink, die ouens het altyd in die verlede het hulle kontrakte einde Oktober klaar gemaak, en dan sit hulle September en is nog nie seker of hulle gekontrakteer gaan wees nie, so ons spreek dit 'n bietjie aan. Ook as meer sekerheid waar jy is in jou loopbaan, so as jy nou onder 21 nie 'n kontrak kry nie, moet jy miskien op 'n ander manier probeer inkom. Dit is al gesê, maar ons het baie senior spelers in ons stelsel wat nie speel nie en wat nie beseer is nie, waarop ons baie geld spandeer, en ons glo dit is nie nodig nie. Twee vlakke, dit is nie goed vir die speler nie, want hy word nie ontwikkel nie en hy verlewe na rugby nie, maar selfs as 'n rugby speler nie. Maar dit is nie goed vir die industrie nie, want jy vat op baie geld en jy druk dit in iets wat jy nie moet doen nie. En dan die laaste punt op 'n provinsiale vlak, omdat jy baie minder spelers het, maar die hoeveelheid fondse wat toegedeel word aan hulle, gaan die gemiddelde salarisse eintlik verbeter vir die spelers wat binne die stelsel bly. En ook, ek dink dit is belangrik om te sê, daar gaan geen afleggings wees in terme van kontrakte nie. Dit is net al kontrakte wat gaan uithardloop en nie gaan word, maar dit bly dieselfde.
Ja, ek dink van 'n nasionale belang af, ek dink die grootste voordeel van hierdie nuwe kontrakteringsmodel is dat ons weet, ek dink ons risiko is baie meer versprei. Waar gewoonlik maar ons hele belang was in 14, 15 spelers gewees, wat ons in Suid-Afrika probeer hou het, is dit nou, weet, 60, 70, 80 spelers, en ons het steeds, ek sal nie sê die reg behou nie, maar die voorreg behou dat ons saam met die Unie kan werk, of die provinsie kan werk, en saam met die provinsiale afrigters, of franchise afrigters kan werk, en daai spelers saam kan bestuur in terme van kondisionering, medies, jy weet, player welfare, al die goeders, is hy hele hoë prestatieprogram rondom die spelers. So ek dink ons hele risiko is baie beter, en weet, as jy net kyk, ons het laas in 2009 regtig weet die rugby kampioenskap gewen, so ons moet iets radikaals verander. So ja, ons ek dink overall is ons risiko beter en ek dink die samewerking van my players, van SARU en die speler self is baie positief. So ja, ek dink die volgende paar jaar gaan 'n rukkie vat voor ons die voordele gaan kry, maar ja, ek dink die toekoms is blink.
Rassie, kan ons net meer in Afrikaans net oor die bokke ook het gepraat van die geld wat it's not sustainable en net jy het gepraat ook van as 3 soorte spelers van die Springboks en die resolution 9 ook net oor die Springbok oor dan in Afrikaans.
Ja nee, ek dink ou moet aanvaar, is nooit lekker om spelers te verloor oor see nie, weet. Na wêreldbeker siklus gaan jy altyd 'n klomp spelers na oor see verloor. Ons gaan seker 'n hele paar verloor. Maar ek dink daar's 2 tipe spelers wat jy verloor as hulle oor see gaan. Ek dink die een is die tipe ou wat oor see gaan en hy wil rustig raak, hy wil gaan aftree en saam met sy familie 'n ander lewenstyl ervaar, of dis vir suiwer net vir finansiële redes. En dan is daar 'n ander ou wat gaan, maar hy wil nog bitter graag vir die Springboks te speel. En ek dink die deur wat ons oophou is vir daai speler wat nog in shape wil bly, wat nog daai absolute lus het om vir die Springbok te speel. Ons wil nie daai deur toemaak nie. Die rede hoekom ons daai deur wil toemaak nie, want die oomblik as daai speler aanbeweeg, dan dink die ander ouetjie wat hierdie kant agterbly is ons daai deur toegemaak het, hy moet outomaties hy salaris van daai ou oorvat. So ons het op 'n manier het ons spelers wat agterbly hierso se salaris net hoër gemaak omdat die ander speler nie meer gekies word nie. So ek dink dis 'n manier hoe ons eie salaris hier so 'n bietjie kon beheer het. So en ek dink ook met die brief wat ons laas jaar uitgestuur het aan die oorseese klubs deur vir hulle te sê het ons gaan met regulasie 9 die spelers nog steeds kies, dink ek het ons daai deur toegemaak. Ja, so ek dink op albei vlakke het ons dit beheer.
Waarom dat jy net 'n bietjie praat oor die nommers van die al spelers?
Ek dink daar as ek jou reg verstaan, daar's 3 verskillende klasse spelers, professionele spelers. Die franchises kan 45 maksimum kontrakteer. Die nuwe franchises, emerging franchises 40 en die non-franchises maksimum 23 spelers en die res semi-professionele spelers. So die tweede klas is semi-professionele spelers en dan ontwikkelingsspelers tot 'n maksimum van 21 jaar. Wat daar geen perk is op die getal spelers nie, maar daar is 'n perk op die maksimum begroting wat 7,5 miljoen by die junior ontwikkelingsspelers is, by die nuwe franchise is 15 miljoen en by die non-franchise is 6 miljoen. Die 2 nuwe franchises en die non-franchises speel in onder 20 amateurliga, waar daar 'n beperking is van 1 miljoen rand, maar dit is suiwer amateurspelers.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Sorry, Rassie, jy het ook genoem van die incentive wat jy wil skep vir spelers om hulle te bly, soos dat hulle direk, nie direk nie, maar betrokke gaan wees in 'n nasionale omgewing. Waar kom dinge dan soos stapplanne vir dinge soos die komende Springbokke, die SA-span, hoe werk dit alles om daar iemand te hou in die planne?
Ja, ek dink die heel eerste ding vir 'n speler, as hy 'n speler van 'n player of national interest raak, jy weet, dan onmiddellik hy sal obviously weer daarvan, hy sal finansiëel obviously 'n bietjie meer geld kry hopelik dan. Hy sal op die hoë prestasie program wees, natuurlik. Ek dink as die begroting het toelaat, sal ons verseker die SA staan op die stadium weer begin speel. Ons sal ouens betrek by Springbok kampe en ja, ons sal die programme rondom die spelers sal ons probeer net baie beter maak. En ek dink die oomblik wat 'n speler op baie nasionale program kom, sal hy ek dink die ander spelers rondom hom ook beter optrek. So dis maar die incentive.
Rassie, van my, just in, obviously the bigger picture is play a well as well. Just currently at the moment you have a lot of top guys who are injured, are not playing, they haven't played for a while, hoping to come back by Rugby Championship. Are you concerned at the moment going into Rugby Championship and particularly World Cup here?
Yeah, look, I think we are one of the fortunate countries currently. You know, we sit every morning and we go through our list, and I think the only doubtful player currently for who's really in the mix for Rugby Championship is Lode Jager and Warren Whiteley, who's really doubtful for the start of Rugby Championship. Warren, I think, will definitely be out for the start of Rugby Championship. Guys who's really on the radar. I think if you go and look at the other countries, there's guys who's definitely already out, who are serious contenders for World Cup as well. Where you're correct is guys who would be match fitness will definitely be a problem. That's why I mentioned a guy like Andre Pollard. For example, if he didn't play now and the Bulls, for example, did not win the match or drew the match now, and they, for example, lost the last, or he didn't play next weekend, he wouldn't have played 6 weeks going into Rugby Championship. So, we in the beginning of the season sat with every single franchise, and we agreed on average minutes that we would really like every single player to be on. And I must be honest with you, they are really, it's 50 minutes more or 60 minutes less. They are really close to the targets which we set to them. So I want to thank them for that. So in terms of injuries, a guy like Sia Kolisi is got to be out now, but he's going to be fit for the first test match. But game time will be a problem. So those are things outside our control. But I can only compliment the franchises in the way they've been managing their players.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Sorry,